This weekend, there were seismic readings from Armenia that were signaling that Iran has been developing something that, you know, some of us, I definitely think they should have had for a very long time. I'm, of course, talking about the start of a new era. Iran finally has developed an even oranger manul.
What?
Fans of the show will, you know, longtime fans will know. I famously advocated for this on Crooked Media on Love It or Leave It in 2017, and it was edited out. I remember I remember it like it was yesterday. I was on Love It or Leave It Live, and I said to John Lovett, if I was Iran, I would be making an even oranger manul right now. And he looked at me. He didn't miss a beat. He said, I like to beat cats to death in my spare time. And I said, I really don't know. I don't see what that has to do with anything. The manul is a wild cat. Presumably you're doing these to house cats. And he said, if they make an oranger manul, I'm going to name it after you and shoot it in the head. And I said, well, that's not very mature. But, you know, it got edited out. We forgot about it. But now they have the orangest manul in the world. What do you guys think?
A long time coming.
It's going to be an issue because, I mean, look, had the Iran manul deal that Obama passed, were that still in place and not thrown out by the Trump administration, there would be international manul inspectors that would have access to this orange manul to verify its legitimacy. Are they just dyeing these manuls or bright orange color, or have they actually created a sort of weapons grade manul?
That's a great point.
Yeah, they could be doing what that zoo in China was doing, where they were just like dyeing the little doggies to look like baby pandas.
Well, without an inspections regime, we'll never know their manul capability. But I mean, I fear for the worst, honestly.
If we allowed inspectors in there, they would just be shoving these orange manuls. They'd be shoving the orange paint just in closets, and they would be duping the inspectors.
Yeah, that is the big problem with the breakdown of the Iran deal. But, you know, satellite imagery has shown that they have at least a litter of manuls that are Garfield colored. And, you know, I've tried to paint regular cats that color. It doesn't work. You just have to breed them.
I just don't know if this is really what the region needs right now in terms of stability. Because if there is a Garfield gap between Israel and Iran, like I think Israel could perhaps be dipping into their strategic reserves of normals, and then the whole region could be spiraling out of control into some. It would be a real bad Monday. Let's put it that way.
There has to be an Israeli named Odie, right? Sort of like an Israeli sounding name.
Odie Glav.
Yeah.
They're currently on the Columbia campus right now, putting up giant milk cartons of missing hostages.
Yeah. You know, Garfield did the Abraham Accords before Israel did, because he sent Nirmal to where? Abu Dhabi.
Abu Dhabi. Yep.
Yeah.
Wow.
He was the first guy to do the Abraham Accords.
Folks, I hate Mondays. And let's start the show. It's Monday, October 7th, 2024. And boy, it starts earlier every year, doesn't it, folks? I guess at the top of the show, we should mark this anniversary by three important announcements regarding new merchandise available in our store. Matt Christman's book, Go Pasaran, Matt Christman's Spanish Civil War. And, of course, our live show in Los Angeles the night before the election with E1. Tickets available now. Link in show description. To all three of these wonderful things that you can do to help commemorate this very solemn occasion and day. But, yeah, new merch, Matt Christman book, Chapo E1 live show in LA, election eve.
Let's go.
Oh, and even better to commemorate this solemn occasion, it's the return of my favorite guest and yours, Catherine Krueger. Catherine, welcome back.
I need everyone to know that I consented to do this, and I wasn't looking at my calendar. I live and die by my calendar. I didn't know it was October 7th today, but, you know, very happy to be here.
Well, for the next hour, I will be reading the names of all the hostages that are still held by Hamas, and, you know, we're going to be
It's not going to take a full hour.
Fuck, I was counting on that taking up this time here. Fuck, I got nothing else.
Yeah, I hope you have a reading series on deck. I don't know.
Catherine has a good point. Does anyone else feel like the hostages kind of fell off
Low-key, they did.
They started a war in fucking Lebanon. There's no hostages there. They're gonna free them. They're gonna free them from southern Lebanon too.
Yeah. Well, yeah. No, I mean, like, I don't even mean like, there are none left. I'm not even accusing them of that. It's not like they have a doctrine for this type of thing. I'm just saying that the hostages had a high Q rating in America, this time like 10 months ago. Time was you could not go anywhere in New York without seeing a poster that was like, bring home Gulfa Shitra. She just wanted to dance. But you don't see that anymore. I think the hostages should sign with one Scooter Braun. That's what I would do if I were them.
Well,
Scooter's out of the game.
Well, you should get back in the game.
Scooter Braun did a hostage event. They like one of the hostage whose boyfriend is still probably has been killed by an Israeli airstrike, let's be honest. But like the one who was dancing at that horrible beach party, she got to meet Scooter Braun, Ed Sheeran, and Post Malone. Do you think I would love to ask Post Malone who he thought that was?
He's just slamming a Bud Light and like blasting a cig and being like, "Hey girl, I love what you're doing. Keep it up. We can all believe in each other."
Now they always say congratulations.
Yeah.
I'm so sorry that happened to you. I'm feeling sad. Again. I want you to dance again. He thinks they're from Florida. He heard they were heard at a rave, and he thought, oh, probably that wasn't one of my concerts. Well, I guess look, the date. I feel like we have. I feel like we've hit most of what people are thinking about today over the last couple episodes. I guess I'll begin the show by noting, just like on this anniversary of October the 7th, the 1 year anniversary of October 7th, I think it's just I think it's telling to note in the official remembrances offered by our government who the victims are here, and it's just like whether it's Kamala or Obama, it's just like they think that like the 1,200 people who died on October 7th, the 1,200 Israelis, those are like the only victims that have ever existed in the world. And I feel like you're right. Like the hostages have fallen off, and there's just like all these like exhortations to not forget the hostages. But like our government in Israel doesn't really give a shit about the hostages. I mean, they fell off as soon as it became clear that Israel didn't want them back.
Right. Yeah. I mean, the thing that is lost in all this in most mainstream media commemorations, let's say, of this date is just the idea that like it was just done out of nowhere. And I'm not even referring to like, the last few decades of history, but rather, the importance of the hostage taking itself. The reason that they took hostages and the reason that hostage taking has sort of been a pretty valuable tool for Hamas is because Israel has done the exact same thing and abducted thousands of people, fucking grandparents, teachers, photographers, journalists, school children, abducted them all, thousands in dragnets, and taken them to these unaccountable fucking military prisons that we now find, now it has been confirmed, have a systematic policy of sexual abuse. And this was their only way of getting their people back. This was the only thing that ever fucking worked. Of course, to see it characterized in most Western media, they just woke up one day and were like, what's the meanest thing we can do?
Something I think about a lot is like, when there was that half-hearted ceasefire that lasted for like 3 days, and they couldn't even get it done before Thanksgiving because you could tell like Biden's people were like, hey, just like, let's not see this on Turkey Day. No one wants that. Yeah, after Thanksgiving, and there was a hostage exchange, and there were like no journalists even like feigning the question about like, oh wait, like why does Israel have anyone to exchange? Like no one has made noise about like, oh, so there are hostages to be exchanged on both sides. Like, it was just like a wild failure to me.
I mean, like, and then the Israeli hostages that were returned, no one wanted to hear from them either. They were quickly
Certainly
shuffled
not.
out of the media spotlight. Yeah.
I mean, going to what Kath said, like, it's like, you know, to take Israel at their word when they were exchanging, you know, their hostages, it would be, you would be accepting that they have 12,000 to 20,000 like terror suspects, like 20,000 confirmed terrorists who I guess range in age from 6 to 98.
And I guess, like, to take, you know, the official commemorations of this seriously, one would have to not regard the probably at least 100,000 Palestinians in Gaza who have been killed since October 7th as, like, you know, victims of a natural disaster, basically, if they're mentioned at all. It's just something, there's a humanitarian catastrophe happening in Gaza, and, like, that's all you can say about it if you mention it at all. But, like, no, it's like the commemorations have to be only for the hostages, and, like, I don't know. And then, like, the large number of people who were killed on October 7th, not by the Israeli military, or who weren't soldiers at the time they were being killed. And I guess, like, it begs the question, like, because, like, you know, living through a year of this now, it's hard to know where things are going. And obviously, like, if you want to call it the axis of resistance, like, anyone fighting back against this shit, like, it's, you know, it's hard to say, like, you know, how successful they've been, or, like, how to gauge this strategically or otherwise. But the thing is, what has changed in the last year, I think, undoubtedly, is that there has been a sea change in how, at least, like, forget the world, but just at least the American public views the issue, the question of Israel-Palestine. And I think, like, the Palestinian cause has more a more global platform and more global sympathy than it's ever had before. Whether that will make a difference in terms of the ongoing extermination of their lives, who knows? But, like, if you're outside of it, like, there's no other option. There's no other option. And as for Israel itself, I think it's clear that, like, the maintenance of the Zionist project now requires more violence and more war to, like, I don't know, as they would say, reestablish deterrence for their state, to expand the borders of their state, whatever they're doing. The maintenance of this project is now requires a, like, 6-front war against, like, 5 different countries. And I don't think that's going to stop.
To say nothing of requires, like, this mental gymnastics that's simply embarrassing on an international stage. You know, like, anyone still defending, or, you know, like, people love to say, like, ceasefire now, but then release the hostages, or, you know, there are all of these, like, kind of backdoor ways to, like, you know, like, don't forget November 7th, actually, but, you know, or the one I've seen today is, like, I think from, like, if not now, like, you know, turn over the hostages, and then there needs to be, like, a diplomatic path to ending the occupation. And it's like, you know, these things are just increasingly untenable, like, in the eyes of the world. And I think that's, you know, a positive thing. But again, like, yeah, it remains to be seen if any of it will matter.
I mean, I think you have to look at it as a positive thing, just in terms of, like, the amount of money, time, and effort spent just in this country alone in trying to corral the narrative. Like, just how many, like, new regulations and laws have to be passed to suppress freedom of speech and the right to protest and peacefully assemble on college campuses and elsewhere. The, you know, McCarthyite purge of people who are, you know, pro-Palestine from many different professions. All of this requires a great deal of time, money, and effort. And, you know, on the surface, it's certainly been successful. I mean, they have certainly cracked down on freedom of speech and protest in this country. They have made it harder and harder to remain employed and vocally sympathetic to the Palestinian people or their history. But at the same time, this requires a huge effort and, like, a huge expenditure of resources to just keep the wheels on this fucking charade. And I think you're seeing in Israel itself and in the region, it's not just, you know, efforts to corral speech. It's literally like one war after another that they're going to have to start fighting. And now it seems to be like Iran is what they're really after. They're going to have to start a war with Iran to keep this thing going. And the question is, when they do that, like, how much harder is it going to get for our government to keep everyone in line, or to keep, like I said, just to keep the engine sputtering along on the project of Zionism? And that remains a very open question.
And you know, we have touched on this a bit. War with Iran or no, like, certain aspects of like the way that Israel has operated since the Second Intifada, there were certain like guarantees, by the Israeli government to the people of Israel. The key among them being like, hey, like we're going to do a lot of like unsavory shit, but the payoff is that like you're not going to have to think about it, you're not going to have to see it. It was, it is kind of their version of the grand Biden bargain of 2020. And in the last 20 or so odd years, it has mostly worked out for them. It has been out of sight, out of mind. They have been able to, sell their startups and go to work and just completely put this out of mind. Now, not just with, what happened on October 7th, but with Hezbollah and I think more vitally, Yemen being able to pierce the defenses of their anti-ballistic missile defenses and the Iron Dome, it sort of chips away at that guarantee. If you can no longer guarantee that people can completely ignore this, then you are going to start to see brain drain. And even the people that stay, the economy is going to pay an immense price. It already has. And American supporter know at a certain point, you can't really keep this thing going unless you're willing to spend like $200, $300, $400 billion a fucking year, which like maybe we will. I don't know. But it just, everything that we know tells us that going on its current course, this is completely fucking unsustainable. What it looks like when that unravels, I don't know. It could be horrible because, as we know, Israel probably has nuclear weapons and they're not exactly a rational actor. But the status quo is dead.
And more than anything, at least as far as this country goes, the status quo of just not thinking about Palestine or Israel, not seeing it, not caring about it, that's certainly been shattered entirely. And we haven't talked about this in the last couple of weeks because of, the World War III potentially starting. But I mean, like this all comes into a sharper focus, certainly 1 month out from an election where we have seen Georgia, the Carolinas, and Tennessee be ravaged by an apocalyptic level of flooding. And then and dealing with an issue of a budget shortfall in the FEMA hurricane season budget. At the same time, when people are seeing headlines about the billions of dollars that we're spending on Israel and Ukraine for their safety and security, and as we're recording this right now, we've got another mega hurricane crawling up the Gulf Coast. Looks like it's going to make contact with Tampa right now. So we've got these like roiling natural disasters in which hundreds of people have died in this country, hundreds, and like the damages are in the billions and hundreds of billions of dollars of property damage has been done already. And God only knows what the reconstruction costs are going to be. But like the issue of is that it's easy to not see, think, or care about Israel or Palestine when it's all an abstraction. But when there's an actual war going on, and then also like I said, in the context of an election season where people feel, and you can argue that they feel this wrongly, but what you can't argue is that like it's unfair for them to feel it at a time when they see their community underwater, literally. And then like a news headline about how Congress did you see the Lindsey Graham clip where he was talking about, where he was like, we need to keep supporting our friends in Israel. There are people that want to kill them, and we need to make sure they get what they want.
There could be no better messenger.
I've been going all over South Carolina like most people. I hadn't slept much. But look what's going on in Israel. Our friends in Israel are surrounded by people that want to kill them, destroy them, a second Holocaust in the making. And Biden says, be proportional. What is the proportional response to people who want to kill you and your family? God. They're running out of ammunition in Israel. We have to help our friends to keep the war over there from coming here.
How are people supposed to take it when the first question in the vice presidential debate was, will you support a preemptive strike on Iran? What are people supposed to fucking think? Even if it isn't like, it's different funding sources or fucking whatever.
Doesn't matter.
Yeah, the fact is, the priorities are clear. A significantly more amount of time and energy is being put towards fucking Israel by the White House than North Carolina. That like they worked overtime on it's the only thing Congress ever stays in session for anymore is to send more money to fucking Israel.
And then it's just a rubber stamp.
Yeah. No, even if you're not literally taking, $1 out of the fucking North Carolina bucket and putting it in the Israel bucket, time is a zero-sum game. Your focus, your energy is a zero-sum game, and it's very clear what they're more concerned with.
Well, and again, we hear like from awful people about the fucking deficit all the time. Even if these are two different funding buckets, shouldn't it all qualify as, oh, you care about the deficit, so this is certainly putting us more in the hole. There's no money to even like put up like, extend Medicaid to like 5 kids, but there's plenty of money for arms for Israel again and again and again.
And again, like I'm sure there's a billion qualifications and counter arguments about how, it's really not just a simple matter of they spent all the money on Israel and Ukraine, because look, money they're spending on Israel and Ukraine, I'm sure it's just a drop in the bucket compared to the entire U.S. budget. But at the end of the day, what you're seeing in front of your eyes, if you live in the Southeast right now or Florida very soon, is the wholesale leveling of your communities by climate fueled natural disasters. And whether that aid is getting through, or the governors of these states say, hey, the federal government gave us everything we asked for. At the end of the day, there's still the headlines. Mayorkas warns FEMA doesn't have enough funding to last through hurricane season. And whether the two things are connected or not, you can't play dumb and think it's entirely inappropriate that people's anger would be misplaced or correctly placed in this example. Because that clip with Lindsey Graham where he was just like most people in the Carolinas, I haven't got much sleep, but I'm mostly cared about Israel. There are people out there trying to kill Israel, and they don't even have bombs, and we got to support our friends in Israel. It's just it's very clear that Israel is not only the 51st state, it's the only state.
Yeah, it certainly telegraphs priorities to people who are without electricity or, who know people who've died. So, I really don't care about any Pod John's explanation that you could provide about how, these are different streams and, one is able to be cut basically and the other is not. But, it just telegraphs something very important about who we as America view as, basically the most important non-voting Americans.
I do think that, in some senses, their Israel policy is their climate change policy. And that is in the sense that, it's pretty easy to figure out Israel's primary and secondary benefits to America, both as, extensions of American foreign policy and as a vector of military Keynesianism. But a tertiary aspect to what we get out of Israel, and I think this has been especially true since probably Clinton, at least, in the last 20 years, more so, Israel is a very useful metric for us to determine how far someone can go.
Yeah.
Whatever they do, the second that we pull their leash, that's always the farthest someone can go. And the fact that we haven't pulled their leash yet signals that we live in a much more degenerated, brutal, and institutionally decayed time, of course. But it is useful for Western governments, and specifically America, to see what is the worst thing someone theoretically could get away with.
And boy, are we getting the answer.
Yeah. When climate refugees are already coming, when they come in the millions, tens of millions, when, we may have to kill people over fresh water, it is useful for the state to know what they will be permitted to do.
And, we're seeing this proving ground right now in Lebanon because if you're following this, you're seeing reports about bombings of Lebanon's healthcare infrastructure. And I remember a year ago, first it was oh no, it was their own rockets that misfired and blew up that hospital and killed 300 people. And then it was well, yes, we are bombing hospitals, but they're Hamas command and control centers. And then that excuse just gets more and more watered down. And now when they're going to war on Lebanon, they're just hitting hospitals and ambulances. And they're not even there are no hostages there. There's not even a pretense that these are Hezbollah strongholds or, like that. Hezbollah has like they have a special room in the middle of that ambulance that they're calling in terror strikes on. There's not even the pretense of that anymore. Why? Because like they got away with it, and they're continuing to get away with it. And now blowing up hospitals is just what you do in a war. And like, whether it's talking about this or like, I bring up the flooding because like the situation like could not play more into the hands of Donald Trump and his presidential campaign. And I'd like to turn it to now to talk about like we're a month out from this election that, like I said, is happening in the backdrop of, what could turn into some kind of World War III style conflagration, which is the skids are being greased by Kamala Harris and Joe Biden, but also the devastation of natural disasters in this country that's happening at a time when many Americans feel left behind, or they feel like their government or the people in charge right now simply don't care if they live or die. And I think that plays into the Trump campaign. And like, I'm not making predictions. I'm not Nate Silver here. I'm not looking at the polling, but I will just say all of this gives me
him against it.
All of this gives me a feeling that it is very likely that Trump wins this election, or at least just like more likely than not. And like, look, no matter what happens, like, people can call me an idiot or whatever. I'm just saying, like, it's just a feeling I have right now. And I think it's largely due to how unbelievably terrible the Harris-Walz campaign has been since the convention.
If Harris wins, it'll be through no fault of her own. Like now they're hiding her from interviews like they did with Joe Biden. And like this, to go back, especially on like you're doing a genocide issue, she could have like done the very least to create any daylight between her and Joe Biden's policy, and she's flatly refused to.
Well, I think her saying we can't look away was her attempting to do that. Her imagination does not run that deep. For the election though, I don't know. I would feel more confident saying, being where Will is at, if this were Donald Trump's first or even second time running for president. But I don't know. I guess you could say this about the last three elections, really, at this point. But this is another fucking American election where it seems like both candidates are doing their best to throw. Trump, as a known quantity, I don't think can exploit those things as easily as he once could. I think that like the campaign's like path to victory is incredibly like low percentage and kind of weak. And there are just these little signifiers that like maybe their finances aren't as good as we thought. I think the fact that he had to bring Elon on stage and like grimace through that moronic jumping thing he did after Elon. Do you remember when Elon said, "I'm going to give their PACs $45 million a month," and then a day later was like, "I don't have that." Like every time anyone has ever done that to Trump, he lashes out at them. He hates people who renege on him. But I think that like they started out in such a fundraising hole because they had to spend so much money on like legal fees and other shit when that was a more going concern, that they're desperately trying to shore up the money machine. And it's just, it's really hard to say at this point because both campaigns are doing the exact thing I would tell them if they ask me, how do we lose this thing? But it's just the worst thing for Donald Trump is being a known quantity and being the third fucking time. 3 elections in a row, people don't get less sick of the guy. I don't know.
That's true. Look, I say this is just a feeling. Like I don't say this with any great confidence. Like whoever wins, we lose. But I'm just saying, okay, like actually, like a way to do this is I'll just get on the list of things that both campaigns are doing right now to throw the election to the other side. And at the top of them for Kamala right now, in addition to supporting Israel, is this country over party thing that they launched this past week to roll out the endorsement of the Cheney family.
Jesus Christ.
Of Liz and Dick Cheney. And like I just have to say here, like that this is all part of like country over party. That even someone like Dick Cheney is going to support Harris because Trump is so uniquely evil. I have said this on this show, but I will say it again. I will say it to anyone who will listen. There is not a single thing Donald Trump did in power as president of the United States that comes even 1/1,000,000th too close to being as evil as what Dick Cheney did in his time in office. And what's more, it's just like
such a weird, unforced error. Like, who is this for?
Yeah.
Like, you're not anyone who like takes Dick Cheney seriously. Like, you know, I don't know. They probably already folded into being Trump supporters. Like, the only like never Trump people left are like, you know, 3 guys who are now on MSNBC. And it's certainly
didn't
not
Cheney
for
lose her
liberals.
primary by like 30 points or something?
Yes. Yeah, and Kamala was having like, you know, was fucking around with Liz Cheney too, being like, "Thank your dad. I'm really glad."
Are there like everyone who would be moved by the endorsement of a Cheney already voted for Biden in 2020 and then immediately died from COVID? The remaining voters that are moved by that all live on the Upper East Side, Silver Springs, Maryland, or under the Denver airport. I don't like, is there anyone in like Fentanyl County, Pennsylvania, who's like, well, I was going to vote for Trump, but I was a founding member of the Project for a New American Century. I love Irvin Kristol. Who is this for? I could not agree more. It defies reason.
I was going to vote for Trump because I thought Kamala lacked experience, but Dick Cheney, you know, he has experience getting big things done, like 9/11. And look how that turned out. So, like, you know, now that he's supporting the Harris campaign,
it's really also just underlining American support for war criminals. You know, like, we're backing Israel, so why not just bring Dick Cheney, war criminal, into the fold once again?
I think the Dick and Liz Cheney endorsement of Harris laws, I think this excites Democratic partisans. Not like some fabled mythical swing voter that's out there who's just like looking for permission to vote for a Democrat for the first time in their life. I just think it's like what they've gotten is that they've moved the Democratic Party to the right. And I think this excites Democratic voters because they love to pat themselves on the back. Like with this sort of construction in their head where they're like, well, if somebody as repellent and evil as Dick Cheney could support Harris Walz, then, you know, the Trump supporters really have nowhere to go. They have no excuse not to vote for the Democrats.
I mean, that is the thing. It actually doesn't really excite the Democratic base. The Harris campaign has moved to the right of where the Democratic base is.
I meant Democratic partisans in the media, not so much the base. Yeah.
You know, this is all immaterial to me as someone who isn't voting, but as someone who is interested in the horse race aspect of it and, you know, has always been interested in these things. It has been very clear to me that the Kamala campaign, after that initial burst of momentum, it became very clear that this was run by the same people who were sticking Joe in a basement and making him give thumbs up during live streams in 2020. If people remember that, it is a very similar strategy. All the stuff that worked, all the things that gave them momentum and stymied Republican attacks, they were told to stop. Tim Walz, the entire reason they picked him was because he was good on TV in a way that Shapiro wasn't. What did they do but took him off of TV and told him to stop doing the things that resonated with voters? Again, this has no bearing on whether I vote or not, and probably for most of you. But just seeing the kind of like they're busting out like the Gen Zers who run fake left-wing AstroTurf orgs called like Voting Tomorrow and Renewable America to yell at people already. No one is endangering this campaign more than the people who are running it.
Well, and like what's so uniquely demoralizing to me as well is like, I think you're totally right. The only people who are energized by a Dick and Liz Cheney endorsement are like, you know, dyed-in-the-wool Democratic voters who are totally baked in. And like, I think what we're really seeing is like this accounting by the Harris campaign about like, you know, we know that a bunch of young people in particular are going to stay home, maybe even more than usual stay home, but clearly they've like done the accounting where like they don't think it's going to matter. So like, you know, whatever downside there is about, you know, like all you had to do was not endorse or not take Dick Cheney's endorsement, and maybe, you know, a few more young people who otherwise wouldn't vote for you because of genocide are staying home, you know, now more than ever. like they're bargaining that it's not going to matter. And I think my prediction is it's going to be very close. And best of luck to them that gambit pays off.
I have a thing on this as well. I don't know if we were going to get to the VP debate.
Yeah, I was going to get to the VP debates.
Well, I have something that kind of links this together, because it's like, if you watch like especially the first 20 minutes of that VP debate on the issues of, as we mentioned, Israel, immigration, climate change, preparedness, you really got the sense that these were two people competing on who was going to most competently and compassionately execute the Trumpist vision for America. Like, every term of every debate is on Trump's terms at this point. Especially like notably the immigration thing, where you've got Tim Walz out there being like, we were gonna build the wall, but Trump stopped us. Like, that is the terms of these things. And then like 2 days later, you have Kamala doing this country over party thing. And I saw some people like defending this, being like, look, Liz Cheney didn't ask for any concessions from Kamala. They're not asking them to change anything. This is just showing how big the not Trump tent is for this party.
She didn't need to.
Yes, that's the thing. That's exactly what I was going to say. By just going fully in this like style of orange man bad is the entirety of the politics, the Democrats have been able to fully remake the party into something that is palatable for the Cheneys. And just my sense from these two things is that whether or not he wins the election, like, Donald Trump won everything that he needs. Everything is on his terms now. Like, the stupidest, ugliest man in America has successfully defeated both of our storied political parties and remade them in his image. It's astounding.
Just like another thing on the VP debate, I did not watch live because like I've endured a lot for this show, but the VP debate this year, I didn't have it in me. But like in the the roundups of it, in the clips that I saw of it, most people regarded that Tim Walz shat the bed. I mean, like, he got dog walked by JD Vance, which is pretty pathetic. But like, it was more so like, it wasn't so much that he JD got the best of him as a debater. I mean, like, in a little ways he did, but it was more that like Walz was like trying to find every way possible to agree with JD Vance. And I thought the really telling moment that happened is that like when they had a disagreement, it was Walz, and instead of Walz being like, well, actually, like, we're trying to secure the border too. It was over. He was basically deferring to the wisdom of economists over JD Vance and like the will of the people broadly, and like leaving this populist avenue of attack open by being like, well, actually, the thing I disagree with him on is the thing that every economist agrees with me on. And even if he was right in talking about like tariffs or whatever, I just like associating the Democratic Party with like we're the party of the elite economist consensus. What economists say, we do.
I did watch it live. Just a horrible waste of my life. Playing War Thunder did not ease the pain. But so I don't think that Walz exactly performed horribly. I think that he failed to. This is partially his fault, partially the fault of the campaign. He did not demonstrate why he was picked. He was replacement level. The way he failed was not so much in getting clobbered by JD Vance, because Vance was also incredibly conciliatory. Part of Vance's strategy was to contrast with Trump. Of course, Trump in the last debate, everyone thought like looked crazy and stupid and everything. And Vance was able to present like a more conciliatory and normal version outlook on the same policies, and more importantly, a friendlier demeanor, which he, I think, largely succeeded at. But like, Vance is probably, up until this point, was the weakest part of Trump's campaign. I think everyone kind of agreed on that. Most Trump voters who were at least able to look at things a bit objectively were able to acknowledge that. By taking this very weird track and going out there and also presenting the more amicable version of Trump's ideology, as Walz did, in the minds of the voters, they start going, well, what's so weird about this JD guy? Yeah. And as we've seen, JD Vance, who was like horribly underwater, he has climbed a lot in the play. He's still underwater, but he's much more popular than he was before the debate. Walt's also more popular, but not really worth it when you previously had like a fucking, this was an anchor around the neck of the Trump campaign, and now it isn't.
And and you had reports coming out that this is a conscious decision by the Harris campaign to like tone down the weird attacks on JD Vance because they thought it was too negative and not looking towards the future.
Idiots. Idiots.
So then you get this debate where they just like congratulate each other on how much they agree on everything, and the net result of that is that JD Vance seems more normal, and Tim Wall seems like it draws down to his level.
Goodbye, Doug. Doug is testing poorly. We have to get rid of him.
What's next for the Harris campaign? Wedding after wedding after wedding.
Yeah, like by allowing JD Vance to like do his debate kid thing, like in a weird way, it did make him seem more normal. Like the whole framing of the debate was also like really right wing, like more than usual. Like framing like the crisis at the southern border and citing like the Wharton School and all this stuff about like, and like, how would you like, pay down the deficit, like a bad framing that like, if the questions weren't provided ahead of time, Walz certainly did nothing to challenge because again, like, why would he, like the Harris-Walz campaign basically agrees with the framing of these questions.
It made me miss my favorite debate moderator, my favorite news anchor, David Muir. David Muir, the news guy from movies.
The man in the moon.
He looks great. He looks like he would tell you that Godzilla is coming to town. I really love him.
I think he kind of looks like the Sleepy Time T-Bear.
No, he's actually very handsome.
I'm not saying the Sleepy Time T-Bear is not handsome. I think he's quite dapper.
You wouldn't kick him out of bed for eating crackers.
That's right.
I did like how JD's the subtext of like JD's strategy, and really like kind of outright saying this at points was like, hey, look, I actually like you. Like, it's Kamala I don't like. What if we just hung out? And no Kamala,
kissed?
and we just see what happens. Let's just see what happens.
Let's get rid of our bosses. Go on a camping trip together. Let's go on a boys weekend. Just the two of us.
Boys only. No divas. Dudes only.
No divas.
So
no Trump. No Harris.
Which means no Trump. Yeah. Oh my God. Can you imagine Trump camping?
Oh my God.
He's in the what's that fucking movie? Deliverance. What's the one where they get the bad camping trip?
Yes, Deliverance is indeed the bad camping trip movie.
Never actually seen it, but I am aware that it's a bad camping movie.
You do better than that. Come on, squeal.
I guess like the last thing I'll say about whether it's Tim Harris or the country over party bit is I just think about this thing that like it's all sold as this idea of like broadening the coalition and just like getting the like the idea is it's a close election, you want as many votes as possible. But I mean, like, it's very conspicuous, like what well they're seeking to draw those supposedly votes that are up for grabs from, because like there's instead of trying to activate people who are begging for a reason to vote for the Democrat or just not going to vote. They are very clearly like trying to court erstwhile Trump voters or Republicans that feel embarrassed about voting for Trump. And this idea is like, well, look, you got to do everything just to achieve power, right? I mean, we want to exercise power, not critique it, right? And I just think like the same dynamic is at play with like, with AOC, when people who defend her by being like, look, she has to be inside the room where decisions are made. And that's the same line I read from Samantha Power this week about why she's continuing to support a genocide despite having advertising her whole career as being opposed to it. It's simply better to be in the room where the decisions are being made than outside of it. And to be inside the room, you got to like make uncomfortable alliances or maybe look the other way on certain things that are displeasing.
It might appear that you're getting nothing that you theoretically want, but that's the power of being in the room.
Is that just this idea about being in the room is all that matters, and that like if you don't want to be in the room,
seat at the table.
You don't want a seat at the table. You're just a purist, and you just want to remain free because you don't want to actually exercise power. But the question is, it's like exercise power to do what? Because it seems here like has AOC meaningfully moved the Democratic Party to the left? No. she has meaningfully moved the coalition of people who still support her to the right. And that is the utility. That's the benefit. That's the service that she's providing that allows her to be, quote, in the room, is delivering a young liberal or progressive constituency to right-wing Democratic policies and coalitions.
The final thing I will say about this election for this week is just in sheer mathematical terms, who do you think, what group of people do you think there are more of in America? Democratic, friendly neoconservatives who are moved by a Liz and Dick Cheney endorsement, or Lebanese Americans?
Yeah.
Who do you what is the bigger group of people? Just off the top of your head, just guess.
Yeah. Well, they would have to meaningfully move the needle on a very important issue to them if they wanted to court, let's say, Lebanese American voters. And they don't want to. Again, like, this is, to me, like the brutal calculus that they've made, which is like, on some level, they must think like, yeah, we're going to lose all of their votes, but we don't really want them because we're not going to offer them anything. And like on some level, either they know they're going to lose, or they've made the calculation that like we don't need them. Again, like that whole Chuck Schumer thing about like for every working class voter we lose, we're going to pick up 2 more in the suburbs, which that was made about like Wisconsin, Illinois, and Pennsylvania. Only one state of which Hillary Clinton carried. So it doesn't really seem like the math did math there. So again, I wish them the best of luck with these calculations because, don't fucking come to my doorstep on November 8th. On November 8th. And, like they always love to drop their latest defeat at the door of the left, such that it is. And, I'm not taking it.
And this is and to get back to the floods and hurricanes and natural disasters happening in this country, this is what's so maddening about it, or like why I can't stand people saying it's not fair that people are actually like incorrectly. They don't understand the FEMA budgeting process because it's like
paging will stencil.
As you said, like the first question in the VP debate is like, should we do a preemptive strike on Iran, or does Israel have the right to do so? The message that, whether you're a Republican or Democrat, the message that you're being given is that the one issue on which both political parties are totally immovable on is our ironclad support for Israel's safety and security. Even if it seems like that is being prosecuted at the expense of the safety and security of American citizens, literally.
At the very least, it's saying you don't matter.
Or the ones, drowning in or being killed by a natural disaster in North Carolina. Now that being said, that I've been very hard on the Tim Harris campaign, but I'd like to talk now about a major area in which I think Trump is trying to throw the election to Harris because I think he's sick of working. I don't think he wants to be president.
Oh my God, the way he looked on stage. I know.
Yeah, this is where I'm going, Felix. Yeah. This is where I'm going, and you mentioned it already, but it's that he returned to Butler, Pennsylvania, to the site of his near-death experience to hold another, another big rally. And who is the highlighted? Who is the big guest at this rally? Elon fucking Musk. Elon Musk. And okay,
the Rust Belt loves Elon.
When the Trump assassination attempt happened, and I've said this multiple times, and that image of Trump with his fist raised in defiance, saying "Fight, fight, fight," I was like, this is going to be the defining image of the 2024 campaign. This is going to just, he's going to go into the White House on roller skates based off this. He's going to glide into the West Wing. No, the defining image of this campaign will be the same location, but Trump looking over his shoulder despondently at Elon Musk jumping around like a fucking idiot.
Spring forth, burly protector, and save me! Ah, jeez. I never hang out with him, normally.
I love so he's been doing this for the past 2 years where he makes an X with his body to represent X, the everything site.
It's so good. It's so good.
It was already bad before he ate through his Ozempic, but like he's as a connoisseur of extreme weight gain and weight loss myself, I can appreciate this. He has finally found something he is truly remarkable at. Everyone who's taken a Ozempic is like, I couldn't eat on it. I just didn't want to do it. But not him. I don't know what he did, but he gained every pound that he lost on Ozempic back and more.
Felix, the jumping to make his body into an X to advertise X the Everything app. I remember when he started doing that, he would be at like a Tesla plant, and like in a still image, it just looks like he's having a seizure or something. It looks like he's having a stroke or something. And then like people would respond
being
to
hauled on board,
and people would respond like, his shirt's coming up, you can see his awful stomach, and and then he has this look, like this spazzed out look of like I don't even know how to describe it. It would be like the look that you would make on your face if you've never had sex for the first time and then busted. That's what it looks like when he does the jumping move. And people would just would be responding to still images of him like frozen midair in some sort of like rictus grin on his face. And people would just be like, "What the fuck is he doing? He looks insane." And then like the Musk stands and the replies being like, he's clearly trying to make his body into an X to advertise X the Everything app.
Doesn't matter. He doesn't look cool. He looks lame as fuck. Oh, I love the Tesla stands.
I like the look on Trump's face is so funny. There's a famous Will, you might know what I'm talking about. Jerry Lewis in like 1980 was in this movie called The Nut, where he did his typical Jerry Lewis thing of where he's like, I'm going to play a horny guy with a traumatic brain injury.
Back to Elon Musk.
500 movies he's been in. The Nut was presumably a guy who would get a boner and go, oh no, and like fall down a mail slot. To promote the movie The Nut, there was a promotional run with KFC. And this is back when the real Colonel Sanders was alive and was the spokesman for KFC. And there's a famous like magazine ad of Jerry Lewis as the Nut making his stupid face. And Colonel Sanders, the real Colonel Sanders who owned slaves until the year 1989, right next to him. And like Colonel Sanders, it's a miracle he didn't kill Jerry Lewis in this. Like, it's the best picture they could get. And the Colonel is so angry. He's like, I had gone 80 years without meeting a Jew, and this has to be my first one. This fucking asshole. And
it was a real,
I had never seen anyone, in our extremely PR massaged, refined age. I had never seen anyone in a controlled event make the face that the Colonel makes to Jerry Lewis until I saw the face Donald Trump made at Elon's incredibly cool exchange.
I was expecting him to make posting photos of him illegal on X, or like a terms of service agreement.
Yeah, he's like the king of Thailand.
Yeah.
It is very clear that Donald Trump does not like buffoonery of any kind at his campaign.
He doesn't sanction it.
He does. It's just a real Tommy Lee Jones, Jim Carrey situation here. But I do want to read a little bit from the Politico article, writing up a headline: Musk the surrogate. The tech titan will hit the campaign trail for Trump. It says here, tech billionaire Elon Musk will ramp up his personal efforts to elect Donald Trump in the remaining weeks of the election, including making visits to Pennsylvania to campaign for the former president. Musk intends to appear in the swing state in the 4 weeks leading up to November 5th, according to a person who has spoken with his team and was granted anonymity to speak freely because they weren't authorized to do so. He is expected to make the stops with the backing of America PAC, a pro-Trump super PAC he formed. He may make other appearances in the state independent of his super PAC, as he did on Sunday evening when he showed up to the Pittsburgh Steelers game wearing a MAGA hat and was greeted by Steelers owner Art Rooney II, among others.
Elon is like, he's not as unpopular as Trump, but he is underwater now. He used to have like incredibly positive public approval numbers, like in the 60s or even 70s before 2016. He is now something at like, high 50s, low 40s. And it's like, what do you think that does for you? It's like if you got another Donald Trump to endorse Donald Trump. It just doesn't make any fucking sense. It's like if they're like, oh, Kamala has a major coup. She's going to get Hillary to campaign for her. Oh, no shit.
Well, I mean, media reports, Hillary appeared on saying that she's advising the Harris campaign on how to beat Donald Trump.
Wonderful.
Which,
it's happening again.
It is happening again.
And you know what? Everyone got on her for that by being like, you're literally the only person who's lost a presidential election to Donald Trump. But yeah, because of that, she knows what not to do. And that's what she's telling Kamala right now.
Kamala has already followed her advice. 9/11 came and went this year. Did you hear about Kamala fainting?
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah.
That's true. That's true. Almost funnier than like sending Elon Musk a campaign in the Rust Belt is like, you know who's even more popular among like Rust Belt Pennsylvanians than Elon Musk? NFL owners.
Ben Roethlisberger.
Yeah.
Well, actually, Ben Roethlisberger is very popular.
Adored individuals.
Well, he's adored in Pittsburgh. I don't know about outside of it.
No, I said owners. Didn't he appear with the owner?
Yeah,
with
Rooney
Rooney.
II.
A
little bit more from the Politico here. It said, and on Sunday afternoon, Musk unveiled a new program in which he promised to pay $47 to people who register to vote in 7 swing states: Pennsylvania, Georgia, North Carolina, Arizona, Michigan, Wisconsin. And Musk has a history of using reward initiatives. He recently unveiled a referral program for Tesla, the electric car company he owns. In the program, buyers and their referrers are awarded $500 or $1,000 in credits, which can be used towards Tesla products. Felix, given what we know of Elon Musk's history of pledging to do things and pay for things, what is the likelihood that he's actually going to pay $50 to people who register to vote?
You are going to get $50 in X ads. Like, you're going to try to get your voucher, and it'll be like, congratulations. Here's, like, you can run an ad campaign on X.
I mean, it would be about the caliber of ad campaigns I see on X. So, you know, someone like pushing their Etsy store or their crochet, you know, whatever.
I saw an ad on X that was advertising that scientists have discovered a new sour mineral.
Oh, I saw that one.
Yeah, scientists have discovered a new sour mineral, and that imbibing this sour mineral will replace brushing your teeth.
Finally.
Well, Will, you're looking to invest in that.
Absolutely. One last thing on Musk here in Pennsylvania. It says, but those close to Musk say his primary focus is on Pennsylvania. A state strategist from both parties see as perhaps the most consequential in determining the outcome of the election. Musk, who also owns X and the space rocket manufacturing program SpaceX and is worth an estimated $260 billion plus, has ties to the state, having attended the University of Pennsylvania. In addition to the Steelers, he is also a Philadelphia Eagles fan. To which I got to say, Elon Musk is stealing my whole bit of rooting for every sports team from New York. You cannot be a Steelers and Eagles fan. I support every team in Pennsylvania, but I love that he has ties to the state because he went to the University of Pennsylvania, for like a semester? What are his ties to Pennsylvania outside rooting for both of their football teams?
The whole like Elon Musk football fandom, I have never seen something that transparent. Like, that is, I mean, outside of like Benny Johnson's heterosexuality, that is insane. Like, no one believes that he has ever like willingly watched a football game before going to that Steelers game.
Nice touchdown. Epic. Honey Badger says interception.
But back to where I started. Trump allowing Elon Musk to clown around on his campaign, that would seem to me an example of him throwing the election. But I simply have more examples of Kamala and Harris throwing the election to Trump than vice versa right now. And it does seem to me that things are breaking his way. But, you know, we shall see. And I suppose now, I suppose it would be a good time to, Catherine, I mean, you're partly responsible for, incepting this idea into my head with the piece that you wrote at the Nation about the return of the hashtag resistance. And it was just like what you described in that piece just gave me the exact same feeling of 2016. And like, because you talk about like what you observed in terms of like with Biden and then like trying to stick with him and then removing him. And then this like, sort of reverse engineered enthusiasm or sort of like de facto enthusiasm bump for Kamala Harris and the ways it is now playing itself out in terms of like a pop culture focused re-election campaign and just this kind of like this idea that the resistance is a thing.
Yeah, I actually like kept picking this piece up and like putting it back down and like thinking it was dead because like, the resistance was like doing all their shit about Biden. And then like, the debate happened and then they were kind of like, is it more hashtag resist like for him to stay in? And there was kind of like a bifurcation of like Brooklyn dad being like, hey, like, he's still the guy. Even at Kamala HQ was like, he's the one, he's our nominee, whatever. And other people were being like, very lightly, like he should get out. And like, just like in writing this piece, I like it really does feel like some PTSD, like became aware again of like Jeff Tiedrick, who's still tweeting like cum socks about Donald Trump. And like, just like this memification of the Democrats, like, and like it really fits with like Harris, like having absolutely nothing to say as a campaigner, or like, what does she stand for? I don't know, like strict immigration policies, but not Project like 2025. Just this vacuousness, and also like this, like, like memeing Harris into the candidate. And so like trying to like punish the left about like, well, she's the coconut. So, and also like, well, Biden dropped out. And so like, isn't that what you all wanted? And then, people were like, well, no, what we wanted is to stop arming Israel. And they were like, yeah, but she's the coconut lady. Like you're doing racism or whatever. It really does feel like everything old is new again. There's nothing new under the sun. And we're destined to relive, the worst of people online.
It's the wages of draining all politics from a political campaign.
Yes.
And filling that vacuum with these like supposedly youth-driven appeals to popular culture that are just sort of like are so vacuous because they're designed to like, well, you just fill in the gaps in your head. She's your cool aunt, like, and then all the things you like just fill it in your head. She stands for that. And then also this idea that it's just like no political point of view needs to be articulated really because Donald Trump is so evil. It's your civic duty to vote against him. And if you're not voting for Harris, you're actively helping this evil, authoritarian destroy our democracy. But like
when was the last time we heard that? How did that turn out the llast time we were hearing that?
Well, just like lost in these pleas to democracy is like any actual democracy taking place.
Well, yeah, it's all sign and signifier, right? Like it's, in an era when like Marvel movies are politics and like, Boeing loves gay people and you know what I mean? It's like it's all sign and signifier signifying nothing. And like I think that dovetails really nicely with this like, this democratic push about like you just have to vote. Like basically like, and, I guess depending on your take, there is some truth to that. But, like, vote over everything else because, like, in a way, that's the only way to participate in politics anymore. Like, no one's in a union anymore. There's no, like, solidarity. There's no class system that anyone identifies with. You just have to vote. But at the same time, you're voting for something that stands for less than ever. So, like, it's like kind of a positive feedback loop of, signifying nothing.
I mean, you even mentioned in the article that they brought back the cast of Hamilton reunited to record some fucking Kamala Harris song.
And
it's
like
just,
Sarah Cooper, the one who was like doing her Trump impressions, like she was like, and like I think in a way like this is actually really telling. Like she like did one more. She's like moved on from this. She was actually like in or like a writer on the Unfrosted movies, so she's like trying to be out the game. But did one last like Trump lip sync video and was like, "Please stop asking me for this." Basically, like I'm done. Like made me a little sad in a way. But yeah, like it's, and I think like even the people who like push this and like claim to believe in all of this like emptiness, like it's not going down even as easily for them anymore. And I think like the dosage that you need to keep administering, like people are kind of inert to it, and like it's just not hitting the same way.
One sort of difference in 2024 to like the resistance phenomenon that you're talking about that I'm discerning now is that like in this kind of pop culture driven political campaign that is offered in lieu of actual politics, I think there's like there's a harsher edge to it this year, and like I feel kind of embarrassed for bringing this up as an example, but the insane reaction to Chapo Roan being even slightly critical of Kamala Harris is a big part of this, because it's not enough anymore that just like every actor and celebrity be on board and say that voting for Kamala is the most important thing you can do. It's when one who is probably one of the most popular musicians right now, specifically for young women, comes out and is critical of Kamala Harris. And then, by the way, while stating that she is absolutely going to vote for Harris-Walz in November. But she says, like, yeah, like, fuck the Democrats. Like, I don't, there's a lot about them I don't like either. And then she said, yeah, obviously I'm going to vote for. And then the reaction to that of people who are like seeking to discipline her or cast her out or like portray her as a Trump supporter because she is insufficiently reverent of this like pop culture political project is, I think, very telling to me. Because it's not like these people have an answer for any of the critiques that she's offering about like why she's hesitant to pull the lever for Harris-Walz.
And the campaign doesn't either.
I saw one of those white Latinas who runs an AstroTurf organization for Democrats who's also a Zionist. There are like 7 of those now, you know, but she went to this website called Did My Friend Vote, which apparently has faulty records. It's supposed to like pull up voting records of, you know, anyone you know, so you can share it and scold them. But
that doesn't sound legal.
Yeah,
it sounds wild.
Not who they voted for, but like if they voted.
Oh, okay.
But like
even so,
those are public records.
Yeah, it's still incredibly annoying. Like if you go to that website earnestly, you are one of probably the most annoying person in your zip code. But a lot of people were saying that they they voted in the last 3 presidential elections, but the website listed them as having not voted. But anyway, one of those people put in Chappell Roan's real name. Her real name is like Kylie Reinhardt.
Kaylee.
You know, yeah, Goering. She lives in Missouri, and they're like, oh, look, she didn't vote. Why would you vote for a presidential election in fucking Missouri? It's like, oh my fucking God. I will say, like, I do think that like just vibes based things are kind of a toss up, though I do favor Kamala. But this whole thing of like castigating her for not being, not even not voting, just like not being sufficiently enthusiastic about voting for this shitty fucking campaign, that kind of put me more where you are, where I'm like, oh, they might fucking, if they're doing this, they might fucking lose.
Well, if we're getting into music chat, like it was kind of a 1-2 punch. Like she had put out that statement about like, could you not forcibly kiss me or like stalk my family members? Like I don't owe you that. Like that actually happened to her. And then with this, like I think like the blowback was so bad that like she canceled a bunch of festival appearances. Like I feel really bad for the way she's been treated. It really sucks.
Yeah, no, yeah. She has been made to be like, the Democratic Party surrogates have like made her this avatar of like this like hateful archetype of like, in their words, a low information voter who's going to throw this election for them. And it's like, yeah, it's really not fucking fair at all.
I mean, like, yeah, they're using her as like a surrogate, like an avatar to castigate and discipline what they regard as like the betrayal of young people who are, not getting on board or are just going to begrudgingly vote for Kamala rather than enthusiastically and, demand that everyone else do the same. And, Felix, to your point earlier about how like Trump's biggest liability is that he's already been president once. And this is the 3rd presidential election that he'll be standing in the last 8 years. For like the hashtag resistance, that also that cuts against them as well. Because the fact that Trump was already president for 4 years, it makes it harder to sell this idea that like he represents a unique threat to democracy. And I know he tried to overturn the results of the last election. I know like there are many bad things associated with him. But like the thing is, when at the end of the day, the 4 years that Trump was president look pretty similar to the 4 years that Joe Biden was president, save for the fact that the United States is involved in like 2 major wars by proxy that we're losing, or like at least in Ukraine, we've lost. And in Israel is like shocking the conscience of the entire planet. It's hard to make the argument that like, oh, but this time is really important. This is the time that like it's really going to matter this time, because like Trump has already been president for 4 years. A lot of bad things happen. I'm sure a lot of bad things will happen if he becomes president again. But like you can't reheat this dish too many times.
Well, it's especially difficult to do when, part of the reason the first two times you run against him, part of the reason that he is so uniquely bad is his immigration policy, which at the time was definitely unique for American presidential politics. It represented a sea change on, what the right-wing position on immigration was. Romney was very much an immigration hawk in 2012, but he had difficulty communicating that in the same way that Trump did. But, that is such a fulcrum point of why he's a unique danger. And you're running on, kids in cages and all these like truly fucking awful things. You can't then turn around and say, well, we tried to do that immigration policy and he wouldn't let us. Well, okay,
Yeah.
what remaining parts are a unique threat? I mean, I guess they would say like the threat to democracy stuff, but that also loses its potency when you gladly accept the endorsement of a man who actually did successfully steal an election.
2 elections. Read the Conyers report about 2004.
Yeah, Ohio was stolen in 2004.
And to the extent that like Kamala is talking about policy, like if you look at her Twitter feed, it's all about immigration. Like she's out front, putting forward like a pretty hardline immigration policy. So, again, it's like Trump, kids in cages, family separation. I'm not saying like Trump wouldn't be worse, but I am saying like she's preemptively out front, not only like centering this as an issue, which I think is a mistake because this is something Trump is so strong on, and like something voters are never going to let Democrats win on. But also like, yeah, her policy is right wing as fuck.
And like, once again, it comes back to like the only real dividing line being abortion and women's health care. And like, that was the interview that Kamala did this week, was on the Call Her Daddy podcast, which was like, obviously a platform for like her strongest issue, which is a woman's right to choose and whether that will continue to be legal in large parts of the country, if not the country as a whole. But other than that, it's just like, like every Republican policy of the last 20 years is now just our platform. And then like, I know I can hear the Democratic surrogates going down the list of all of the big progressive achievements that Biden has accomplished. But like in that case, look, LBJ actually got the Great Society, Civil Rights Act and Voting Rights Act done in addition to Vietnam. And he's still a failed president because of it. Whereas like the Biden-Harris administration, he showed up to a strike and he did an infrastructure bill, but they're also doing a Holocaust. Like, I'm sorry, like you're gonna need to do better than that.
Every single time that they talk about the border guards endorsing the fucking stupid goddamn fucking border bill and how Trump wouldn't let them pass it, instead of abortion, is $100 million lit on fire. It is,
yeah.
It is a future private jet that David Geffen cannot buy because he spent it on that.
I just one last example here. This is something that came across my feed right before we started recording, but like because of Trump's unique position as sort of an outlier from the American political scene, who's now totally captivated it and changed the American political scene. He is still able, because he has a genuinely a worldview that is, still some of it is his own, and it does enable him to sort of accidentally tell the truth about things in a way that other political candidates don't. And Trump appeared on Hugh Hewitt's radio show, and he was talking about the campus protests against Israel. And he said to him, when you see these campus riots, you see a lot of people too. But a lot of these people are Jewish people. You know that? They're Jewish kids. And then Hewitt desperately tried to get him back on track. And he says, oh yeah, there are some outliers, but mostly Jewish students are afraid. And it's like Trump is the one acknowledging that the anti-war movement in this country is largely drawn from progressive Jewish youths. Educated Jewish young people in this country are not by any means the majority of this movement, but there are many of them are involved in it. Probably most of them are supportive of it. But
many have been at the forefront.
Yeah, what you hear from the Democrats is that every Jewish person in America is afraid right now, and they're afraid because of pro-Palestinian protests. And I'm not saying Trump is sympathetic. He called them riots or whatever, but he has a way of acknowledging, Trump has a way of he doesn't know that the dual loyalty thing is a trope, but he doesn't know enough to not know that you shouldn't say it, and he also doesn't know enough to not know that it's also true.
He's a broken clock that's right twice a day, by accident.
I wish you would let him like go on with that thought. I would love to see what like the logical conclusion to that was.
No, the logical conclusion to his thought is that the Jews in the United States are not loyal to him, even though that he supports Israel more than anyone. And he says Jewish people have got to get in line and start being loyal to me. And that's what I mean. Like, and I'm not giving Trump any credit for these things, but it's just like, because the party is supposedly opposing the monstrous evil that he represents is themselves perpetuating actually monstrous evil and lying about it every single day in this country by pretending that like our college campuses have become hotbeds for anti-Semitism, or anti-Semitism is worse now than it's ever been, or every Jewish person in this country feels afraid or whatever. Those are the lies that they have to keep telling. So, by accident, Trump will say something that's actually true.
Yeah.
And this is why I am sanguine on the Democrats' reelection hopes. Because if they're just going to like let these huge avenues of populist anger just be fulfilled by this guy, then I mean, like, they have no one to blame but themselves. And like, it's just like there's so many areas in which they like could be speaking to like actual anger or frustration that people have, or articulating a political vision that like offers some hope to people in their lives, or just like acknowledges the reality of life in this country in 2024. But no, they won't touch it with a 10-foot pole, and it's back to like, let's all get angry at Chapo Roan because doesn't like Kamala enough.
And Chapo Trap House, the most influential left podcast.
They've already put us in the fucking dirt. All right, they've already done that, and it's still not good enough.
Yeah, I know. It's never good enough, truly.
Yeah, I think that about does it for me. I mean, do you have any closing thoughts on this, Catherine or Felix?
Yeah, I feel pretty much the same way as I did in 2020 and 2016, which is that, as always, if they lose, they were gifted a uniquely unpopular opponent who had an extremely, extremely low percentage path to victory on the electoral map. I have no illusions that if this campaign fails, that it will result in anything good. This is not really a party of like introspection or anything like that. But, just in removed from consequence and removed from anything else, does this campaign deserve to lose? Abso-fucking-lutely. Both of them do. It's just a shame who either of them would lose to.
All right, well, that does it for us today. I will remind you, as I did at the top of the show, to check out our new merchandise, buy Matt's book, and come see us in LA with episode 1 on Election Eve in Los Angeles. Tickets available now. I'd like to thank our guest, Kath Krueger, and please check out the article she wrote for The Nation. We will link to it in the show description. So until next time, everybody. Make sure to remember this October 7th as the date that permanently altered our plans to change this show into a Tulsa King recap podcast. We can't do that anymore because of world events. Hope you're happy, Israel.